This isn't going to take too long, is it?
That's up to you and how long you decide to take to describe your experience.
Okay, then.
Statement of Aitor Larran regarding their experience when scouting a location for their upcoming film. Taken direct from Subject, July 9th, 2024. Statement begins.
So, I don't know how much you know about filmmaking and the process that goes into it, but it's pretty complicated. A lot of moving pieces, location, talent scouting, writing, coordination of the set workers and the actors, makeup, pay negotiations, etc., etc. It's a lot, and I don't have an assistant yet, so I need to do a lot of the work on my own, especially since this is going to be my first big film. I've done a bit of work as a junior director here and there, but nothing that was truly all mine, you know? I've had the idea in my head for a while, this eerie comedy horror flick. Or would it be horror comedy since it's more horror forward? Its definition doesn't matter, but I had the idea and I was starting to get things started. The thing is, my idea entirely hinged on location. The set had to be perfect, or else I wouldn't be able to get my vision across. And that's where the problem lied. You live in the area. The Northeast is creep central. There's no shortage of haunted towns and houses and graveyards and everything else up here. Cursed Dudleytown in Connecticut, Danvers Hospital right here in Mass, literally all of Salem. And if you go west a bit to New York and Pennsylvania, you're hitting the northern bit of the Appalachians, which everybody knows is all sorts of messed up. What I'm trying to say with all this is the location I was imagining in my head already been used a million times by everyone and their mom. Books, films, documentaries, you name it. If I decided to film at any of those locations, it wouldn't be new. It wouldn't put me on the map. So I was at an impasse, and it was really pissing me off. I had a long couple of weeks brainstorming, Googling, and scouting, and I just needed a bit of time to blow off some steam, relax, and not be consumed by thoughts of work for a couple of hours. So I decided to go to a local book bar downtown by the name of Literary Crafts. If you've never heard of it, it's basically a bar inside an old secondhand bookstore where a bunch of writers and art types hang out to get their creative juices flowing. Yes, I know I just said I was trying not to think about my film, but this place has some really damn good homebrewed draft beer, and sitting down with a pint and a book off the shelves sounded pretty perfect. It's when I'm on my third pint of IPA and starting another reread of Infinite Jest that I realize someone's taken up a seat in the armchair across from me and has been watching me. I don't know how long he was being a creep, but when I snapped "what" at him, he gave me a bright smile and asked if I was Aitor. At that point, I was feeling the beer and could feel my mood starting to sour at the interruption, but I really didn't want to cause a scene at one of the few places that I actually enjoy going to, so I just nodded and closed my book. The young man introduced himself as Reginald Wheeler, but says just to call him Reg, with a bright smile. I don't know what it was about him, but he reminded me of Sawyer Schultz from college. And by that I mean Reg came off as a charismatic snake oil salesman. But he was looking for me. And if he was looking for me, that meant my name was spreading, and it might be worth my time to listen, or at least to hear him out. I could always file this conversation away and forget about it later if it was a waste. Reg goes on to say that the gossip mill is really going, and he heard from some colleagues of his that I was trying to find a location for my upcoming film. I was a little miffed that my colleagues were gossiping about me, but honestly, I guess it's my fault for complaining within earshot, so I wasn't going to chew this rando's ear off for following the natural order of prattling conversation in an industry that thrives on drama. The conversation goes on like this for a couple of minutes, Reg doing small talk and me indulging the scripted conversation of two strangers meeting in a bar. It's when he elaborates on who he works for that I'm jolted out of my hazy, beer-addled state and actually start listening. Apparently, Reg is the personal assistant of Casey Parrish and is here on his behalf as a representative. If you don't know who Casey Parrish is, I will forgive you this one time. Parrish isn't the type of man to go to parties and award shows and soak in the limelight of his accomplishments. His career has also been on pause for the last decade or so due to health reasons, but his films are all big cult classics. The Ghost on Park Hill, Blood and Moonlight, and Red Hell Gate are a few of them. Parrish's films hit that right blend of unsettling but intriguing that make you want to continue watching, even as you feel the fear crawling into your lungs. His use of visual atmosphere, supplemented with the subtle soundtrack and lighting shifts, really make the viewer feel like something bad is going to happen without being able to pinpoint exactly why they feel that way. Anyway, this random man who ambushed me at my local haunt apparently works for the Casey freaking Parrish, and I don't know if I actually believe it, and the doubt must have been on my face because Reg just shoots me a dazzling smile and slips a card out of one of those business card holders and slides it across the table between our chairs to me. He says he'll give me some time to consider the offer, which I don't actually remember him saying what it was exactly. But he continues that I'm more than welcome to contact him after I've had a chance to scout out some of the locations from Parrish's personal set list that are on the back of the card. So, as Reg is gearing up to leave and he's wishing me a nice evening, my hands are on that business card, and sure enough, it has Reg's name, number, assistant information, and a list of handwritten haunted locales that apparently Parrish has scouted and approved, but hasn't personally used yet. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm suspicious. Very suspicious. The timing of this lines up too well with my frustrating week and lack of results. The first thing that popped into my head was that someone's pulling a fast one on me, but that doesn't really make any sense. I've never talked to anyone about Casey Parrish. It would have been more beneficial to use Del Toro or Juan to catch my attention, but Parrish was too specific for me directly. Instead of trying to parse out this very weird evening, I decided to leave it until the morning when I was clear-headed, rested, and sober. So I finished my beer, put Infinite Jest back on the shelf, and went home. All things told, except for that one annoyance, the night was fine. Best part is, I didn't wake up with a hangover. So as soon as I was up and had my latte in hand, I took a look at the business card and the list on the back. It was short. There were only 3 locations listed: Warbler's Walk, Sailor Sanguine, and the Calling Cave. There weren't any indications to where each was located. No address, no town, not even a damn coordinate. But thankfully, we live in the age of technology, and Google did not screw me over, so I was able to get a general vibe of what each location was like. Warbler's Walk is located a bit south, near the Connecticut border. Apparently some kind of hiking area with a history of missing persons, but not enough for it to be considered haunted by the general populace yet. Creepy, but definitely not what I'm looking for. Sailor Sanguine is out by the Cape, and the biggest point of interest is that there's an old story about a sailor and their love and blah blah blah. Boring, and also not what I'm looking for. But the Calling Cave, that had potential. It apparently was called the Calling Cave due to how the wind moved through the caverns, making it sound like it was whistling for you. I wanted my film to focus on the external isolation of an individual and how it impacted its internal thoughts and perceptions. And if the wind was as unsettling as the accounts made it seem, it would be a perfect psychological stressor to the story I wanted to tell. I finally felt like I was getting somewhere with my film, so I immediately began to pack a hiking bag. Plenty of flashlights, some snacks, a couple of water bottles, and once I had my portable phone charger, it was time to begin the long drive to Rowe, Massachusetts. The drive was looking to be about 2.5 hours, so plenty of time to catch up on some podcasts or start a new audiobook. I had tried to start listening to Camp Damascus because my younger sister, Naya, said I just had to, but I couldn't really get into it. It's a little too close to young adult for my taste, and my attention kept drifting to the sky and the weather. It was summer, so I was hoping that a good storm would roll through and create the perfect dramatic atmosphere. Silhouettes appearing in the distance as lightning flashes, but gone the next. Rain hammering around so you couldn't hear if you were being chased. Beautifully gray and dreary. But apparently, the universe hates me, and it was gray and muggy, and I could only pray that the crappy weather didn't color my impression of the location. The Calling Cave is located in Davis, Massachusetts, and it's part of an old abandoned mine system that was active during the Second Industrial Revolution. There was apparently a collapse at some point due to, surprise, surprise, poor mining practices. Great to see that corporations cut corners in every decade, right? Anyway, other than the suboptimal weather, the drive went quicker than I thought it would, and I made it to the property line of the old Davis pyrite mines without issue. It took a bit of extra work in the form of a long hike to actually get to the Calling Cave, which I'm not going to go into detail about, but let's just say that I did not have an invitation to visit. So let's keep the information that I was there between us, all right? My biggest concern was that I wouldn't be able to find the entrance to the cave or would accidentally wander into one of the mining shafts. When I was searching online, a couple of spelunkers who apparently ran a dive in the area said that the Calling Cave was past the small mining town, about a mile into the woods. All I had to do was hug the hills to my right after leaving the town ruins, and I would eventually come across the entrance in the hillside. The forest was quiet, except for the sound of the wind rustling through the canopy as I impatiently hiked to my destination. The ground was moist and muddy, and more than once I almost tripped as my feet were suctioned to the forest floor. I didn't like hiking, but there wasn't anyone I could trust to do this correctly, so I had no choice but to do it on my own. The suffering we do for our passions. After what felt like forever, I finally saw it, nestled between bushes and vines, an opening in the earth. Sharp rocks ringed the outside, pointing inward, reminiscent of teeth, and a shiver went up my spine as I took my first step across the threshold to be devoured by the mountain. When I was reading the spelunker's account of the Calling Cave, they said it was a simple tunnel without deviating paths, so it was impossible to get lost. How big it wasn't a concern to me. Clever camera shots could make it look larger. What was important was how it made me, and the audience, feel. And the farther I went in, the irritation of the weather and the hike melted away. It was perfect. And then the wind came. I don't know exactly when it started, But one moment, all I could hear was quiet drops of condensation and rocks crunching as I walked, and the next, the air was filled with this eerie whistling, and all other sounds were just swallowed. I felt unsettled, but not concerned. This is the exact reason why I decided to visit this location, and I was fortunate to arrive at a time that the calling cave was showing its best face for the camera. I continued on until, unexpectedly, the path revealed a fork in the system. I frowned. There weren't supposed to be any branches. As I shined my light down each tunnel, both curved off in another direction, so I couldn't get a sense of what was down them or where they were headed. I didn't want to leave, not when I was just getting started and the atmosphere just turned perfect. So I reached down, grabbed a rock, and made a mark in the wall on the right-hand tunnel before continuing on. At this point, the whistling seemed to get louder as I crept deeper into the earth. It filled my mind, coaxing up a feeling of déjà vu, even though I had no relevant memories that matched the location. The tunnel curved and turned, seeming to double back on itself and cross paths with where I was before, but never creating an intersection. The illumination from my flashlight was shaking slightly as I took a deep breath, trying to rationalize myself into calmness. Everything was fine. I wasn't lost. I only took one turn. If I wanted to leave, all I had to do was turn around and go back the way I came. And then I hit another fork. I frowned, confused as I pushed away the increasing sense of déjà vu. This was fine. I would just mark my path again like I did before and go right. If I stayed consistent, there was no way I could get lost. If I marked clearly where I was going, I could easily double back. I made a dash with my rock against the stone wall, preparing myself to take the right path again, and paused, the sense of déjà vu gripping me stronger than before as I looked at the dozens of dash marks next to the one I just made. That wasn't right. That couldn't be right. I looked at the stone in my hand, and its tip was filed down and dusty from consistent use being dashed against the rock. No, this... Did I already come this way? Did I have this rock in my hand the whole time? I thought I put it down at the first fork. I could have sworn I did. Perhaps I should check the script to confirm that's what I was supposed to do? At that, I froze, finally starting to feel fear entwine with the burdening familiarity. I slipped the rock, my rock, into my pocket and let my bag drop to the ground, where it made a quieter thud than I thought it would. Pinching the flashlight between my cheek and shoulder, I angled the beam to peer into my backpack, hand reaching in to grab what I was looking for. The script. My script. Nestled among empty snack bar wrappers and slightly damp from a leaking, mostly empty bottle of water. I run my tongue over my dry, cracked lips as I grab the script and hold it in my hands for a moment, staring lovingly at my debut masterpiece entitled Eternal Debut by Aitor Larran. I flipped open the tightly bound pages, skipping the scenes where I met Reg and began the drive to Row, filler exposition, and I stopped as I found the calling cave scenes. I mouth the words as I read, going over my lines and taking note of how I should be reacting in each shot, especially when I begin to notice the whistling of the wind and finally acknowledge my growing unease. I finally find the lines I'm looking for and nod to myself. The line beneath my finger clearly says, Aitor takes the rock in their hand and makes a mark on the right wall, and then continues down the right path. I don't know how long I followed the script. My phone was long dead, as well as my battery packs. All I know is that I had to keep going, had to keep rehearsing my scenes until they were just right, until they were perfect, until the audience could feel the fear, the anxiety, and the building panic that I was experiencing for my isolation. It was when I was about to make another notch on the wall that the whistling wind ceased, and the rock clattered to the ground as it fell from my hand. I don't know what possessed me to turn around and leave the cave, but I did. And when I emerged into open air, I could barely see from the brightness of the sun, and I slowly retraced my steps through the woods and the mining town until I reached my car, which was covered in leaves and bird shit. I drove home in a daze, fully intending to call Reg as soon as my phone had a charge, but I couldn't find his business card. I was tired and exhausted and dehydrated and starving, and now I couldn't find his fucking card with his number to ask him what the hell was going on, and I eventually gave up trying to find it and came here instead to make a statement. Your institute has a reputation for being weird and investigating creepy stuff that happens to people, so here I am.
That's true, Magnus Archive. The Institute will do its very best to look into what happened to you. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the record?
Nothing except that if you find Reg, I need you to call me immediately. Understood?
Magnus Archive, I promise that we'll do what we can, but we can't make any guarantees. Now, if there's nothing else I can do for you...
Hey, boss, got those boxes moved. Do you or your guest want anything from Dunks? I was gonna make a run.
No, Theo, thank you. But next time, please knock before barging into my office, especially while I'm in a meeting.
Right. Knock. Sorry. I will definitely remember that next time. I'll be back in a few. And hey, nice to meet you.
I thank you for your help, but I must be going. I need to get back on script.
End recording, I guess. Supplementals. After concluding their statement, Magnus Archive left despite the insistence of staff to seek medical attention for dehydration and malnourishment. They left in a daze, muttering about their script, which they left behind for the Institute's records. The script looks unremarkable. A stack of paper held together with 3 brass fasteners on the left side. The paper is worn and torn from use and exposure to the elements, but is still in readable condition. The front cover is stained with dirt and dust, but the title, Eternal Debut, and Larran's name is still visible. At first glance, the script seems to be filled with lorem ipsum and other placeholder text. But upon closer examination, the phrase, "Stay on script," in all capped letters, repeats on the pages from about midway onwards. These pages in particular seem to have seen the most use. I have yet to do any investigation on this statement, and will be handing it off to my assistants for their first fieldwork assignment. End recording.